Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Adi, and today we have another team report from Indianapolis Regionals, and I'm joined by another top player. I'm joined by Nora. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm doing well. I'm really happy. This was a really fun tournament, and cutting it was, just a cherry on top. And I'm happy
Yeah,
to be here.
it's great to have you. And so, for those who don't know you, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Nora. I've been playing VGC since late 2018, think around Sun Series, and I was in seniors. I did decently in seniors. I cut NAIC and I made D2 Worlds in seniors, so I was okay. And then I really struggled to adapt to Masters, and this is my first regional cut in Masters, so it really means a lot to me. So apparently I'm not washed.
And you had a really impressive run. You went 8-1 in Swiss and ended up losing in top 16 out of almost 300 players. I think it was 260 that ended up showing up. So a really, really impressive performance. And you used this team to do it. So you used a Calyrex Zacian team. Why did you choose to use this core?
I tested a lot of different things leading up to the tournament, and I landed on this core, just because I had played it the most, and I couldn't find anything else that worked better, so I just went with a comfort pick.
Mm-hmm. And so, how did you go about building this team?
I really built this team with my brother Alex and Ashton Cox. So very early on in Series 12, there was a Calyrex Zacian Blastoise team that did well, and we just kept iterating on that original six. I have no idea where it came from. It was just floating around, and eventually we landed on this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've definitely seen a lot of the Blastoise Calyrex teams. It's the residual damage dealer that I feel like makes the most sense on the Calyrex teams, and Calyrex really benefits from that residual damage because it gets to clean up games so effectively once everything is chipped down. But you do have some interesting choices on the team. So do you want to tell me about the Pokemon, their moves and EV spreads, and why you chose to train them the way you did?
Well, the original team had a Prankster Thundurus in the slot where the Regieleki is, and when Ashton and I picked it up, we decided to change that to a Defiant Thundurus just because we wanted more damage. And eventually, as a joke, he suggested Choice Scarf Regieleki because it could outspeed Kyogre and Tailwind and do a lot of other silly things. And originally, it was physical. The moveset was Wild Charge, Bounce, Electro Web, Assurance, and that was really, really good. I really loved Choice Scarf Alecki, but I wanted Electro Web to do damage if I was going to be locked into it. So I switched to a primarily special Alecki, but I kept Assurance just because Max Darkness plus Astral Barrage is just broken.
Mm-hmm. And do you know what the EV spread did?
Yes. I have 12 speed EVs because I was like, okay, if I play another Scarfalecki, I am not losing. And it lives Miracle Seed, Grassy Glide from a Rillaboom, and it lives Astral Barrage from a non-boosting item Calyrex, and the rest is a dump and special attack.
Gotcha. So I know that you obviously want to outspeed Kyogre and Tailwind, but do you know what speed stat you hit and what else you outspeed?
So I was looking at potentially going modest and then having EVs in speed, a lot of EVs in speed to get the Kyogre benchmark, but that was a lot of EVs, and I can just go timid, no investment, and hit the Kyogre and Tailwind benchmark. So I also outspeed base 100s and Tailwind.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. I think that bulk on Elky is something that's really valuable. We've even seen like some people running Assault Vest Elky, for example, just to get that. But obviously, by doing that, you give up the speed ties, which are so valuable for a lot of these Calyrex teams. So this seems like a really cool way to both give yourself the bulk and win the Regieleki Calyrex mirrors. So this is definitely something to look out for. Were there any changes that you would make to the Elky if you would do it, run this back?
If I ran this again, I would consider Rising Voltage on a Lucky for a stronger Max Lightning. I'm not like, oh, this is the change that needs to be made, but I definitely think I'm going to test it.
Gotcha. And so I guess talk me through the other Pokemon.
So the other sets that stick out a little bit are the Leaf Storm on Calyrex and Close Combat on Incineroar. Leaf Storm, I have over a Psychic move on Calyrex. I had Psyshock, and then I realized, hey, I'm never clicking this. And I really want to be able to go for the Cannonade versus Rinnia Sun. So pressuring Gastrodon is really nice in that matchup. And then Leaf Storm also gives me a lot of damage into Kyogre and Groudon, where Astral Barrage can't really do that as effectively. And Close Combat on Incineroar just smacks other Incineroars for a decent bit of damage, which is really nice when I'm chipping them by trying to switch them trying to switch into Astral Barrage and Cannonade, ticking every turn, where it adds up to put them in range for my Close Combat.
Yeah, that makes sense. Incineroar is public enemy number 1 for Calyrex Shadow, right? And so just having more options to hit it. I mean, you've obviously got Zacian, you've got Blastoise, you got so many different ways to hit it, but having
Zacian with no fighting move.
That's true. And so did you feel like you could drop the fighting move on Zacian because you had Close Combat on Incineroar?
Having Close Combat on Incineroar made me feel a lot more comfortable dropping Sacred Sword. So I knew I needed Protect, Substitute, Behemoth Blade. Protect and Behemoth Blade are obvious, and Substitute I really needed to help versus Trick Room matchups. Play Rough, I went with because I really struggled to hit Palkia and Zapdos without it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then I guess, do you know what your EV spreads do on the Incineroar and the Zacian?
If you asked me the Thursday before the regional, I could have told you because I was I don't recommend this. I was sitting in school, not paying attention on my laptop, running calcs.
I did that too. I got you.
The Zacian, I EV'd it to be, it's Jolly Max, and I calced it to always live an opposing Behemoth Blade from Adamant 164, I believe. And just a little side note that came up in my stream match at Indy, I get 2-hit KO'd by I get 3-hit KO'd by non-boosting item Astral Barrage, which is really nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think Incineroar spreads are kind of fake anyways. Everyone just uses this same spread that you've been using for the last 6 months or whatever. So I definitely did you feel like I feel like they either split into like very physically defensive with Impish usually living like a Zacian Sacred Sword, or very specially defensive meant to live attacks from things like Max Quakes from Palkia, for example. And so was there any thought into going Impish over going Careful?
I went Impish mainly because I wanted to take Groudon hits better. Mm-hmm. Because Rinnia Sun, it's good if the matchup is good if I hit Wisp, and it's weird if I don't hit Wisp. So I wanted to have Incineroar as kind of a backup plan.
Gotcha. And then you have the rest of like the defensive backbone in Blastoise and Rillaboom. Can you talk me through those Pokemon?
Um, Blastoise is it's the second restricted. Zacian is not a restricted Pokemon. It's Blastoise. Um, so originally, I had Assault Vest, Physical Blastoise with Liquidation and Earthquake, which was really, really funny. But I eventually decided that I needed something with a bit more support. I really wanted Yawn and Helping Hand. So I went Waconberry and gave it Yawn and Helping Hand. The special attack investment lets Gmax Cannonade off Hydro Cannon kill specially defensive Incineroars after Chip from Astral Barrage. And the defensive investment is to help me to give me a very favorable roll against Miracle Seed Rillaboom for Glide.
And then talk me through the moves that you chose, and would you have considered something else? I know it gets so many coverage moves. It gets like Fake Out, for example.
Helping Hand was really useful because, well, especially since my Lucky doesn't have a boosting item, Helping Hand lets me still get all of those silly, stupid Lucky Max Lightning one-shots. Which is nice because pretty often I would lead Blastoise Alecki, Game 1, Max Blastoise, Game 2, Max Alecki. And could have a lot of fun with it. And Yawn is mainly useful versus Palkia Calyrex teams, where usually I lead Zacian Blastoise and just click Yawn sub turn 1. Hydro Cannon is just the strongest Cannonade, and Blastoise's special attack isn't the greatest, and I want to do damage. And Icy Wind, I ran this because I wanted an ice move, and I was like, this team wants to go fast, why not go even faster? But I'm definitely considering, like, if I use this team again, which I think I will for the GG Tour on Sunday, to change Icy Wind to Blizzard for a stronger Max Hailstorm so I can have more pressure into things like Thundurus.
Yeah, and then why did you choose to run a Waconberry over another item? In particular, I think that it's notable that your team doesn't use a Life Orb. Did you ever consider putting that on the Blastoise?
I tried it, and then I just got blown up by a Max Lightning, and I was like, I like maxing my Blastoise in front of Regieleki. And Life Orb is a very good item. It just didn't fit on this team. My Rillaboom was Life Orb for the longest time, but it's EV'd to live a Behemoth Blade, and one Life Orb tick, even with the grassy terrain recovery, puts me out of that range. And I wanted my EVs to actually do something.
Yeah. And so the Rillaboom is pretty standard. You also don't have an Assault Vest on the team. Did you ever consider running something like an Assault Vest? And did you ever consider a different coverage move instead of High Horsepower?
High Horsepower has been really, really good. There are a lot of end games where it comes down to Rillaboom living a Behemoth Blade and then High Horsepowering to finish off a Zacian. And Assault Vest Rillaboom is very strong, but I like the extra damage from Miracle Seed. And even more importantly, I like having Protect.
Yeah. Makes sense. I think one of the cool things about this team is that it feels like every single Pokemon is just Zacian hate. You know, like Zacian doesn't want to sit in front of a Blastoise where it can't Behemoth Blade it. Obviously, Incineroar is good. Will-O-Wisp Calyrex is good. Aluki makes it slow. and Rillaboom can hit it too, and even your own Zacian's EV to live its attacks and do a lot back. I mean, Zacian is obviously such a strong Pokemon, such a centralizing Pokemon in this metagame. Uh, the ability to really just invalidate it as an entire team seems like one of the biggest strengths, in my opinion, of this composition.
Yes, I'm very good against Zacian, and as I learned in Indy, very bad against Reshiram.
Yeah,
My one loss in Swiss was to Colding Light, and then I got Wobbuffet in top 16, so I lost to Reshiram Calyrex twice.
yeah, that's obviously that's not something that people were really expecting to see coming into the tournament, and probably like the biggest overachiever with 3 Reshiram Calyrex Ice teams in top 16, and especially I think like Reshiram, one of its strengths is that it kind of stops the Fire Water Grass core defensive core that you have from being as effective, because you have the fire coverage, you have that ground coverage, and you just kind of resist all of the attacks from all 3 of those mons. Obviously, you don't resist water, but you have the assault vest, so you basically resist water. Um, but yeah, I guess one of the cool things about this type of team in general is that yes, it's a Calyrex Shadow team. Normally, you think of those as hyper offensive teams, but you do have so many defensive options in that Fire Water Grass core. You have the bulky Eliki, have the substitute Zacian, Will-O-Wisp, Calyrex. So I guess, yeah, I don't really have any. I don't have a question about this. More of a commentary on the team, but yeah, I think that's like the coolest part about the sort of Calyrex team.
Yeah, this team gets to be very bulky, have a lot of, it has double fake out, so I get to position around Zacian, click Parting Shot and Yawn, and then Calyrex can burn things, be a really great support, and then just Grimnay boost, go burr.
Yeah,
I have my cake. I have my cake and eat it too.
Yeah, exactly. You get so much out of this Pokemon when otherwise it felt very linear. And so I guess on that note, do you want to talk me through the game plans that you had for some of the teams that you expected to face over the course of the tournament?
So, as I mentioned, Renya-san, which I didn't actually play, it seems to be falling off, but I did test against it quite a lot, where the crux of that matchup is Will-O-Wisp Calyrex, and it comes down to, well, it doesn't come down to a team preview mind game, but that's a big part of it, whether or not I lead Eleki Calyrex or Blastoise Calyrex, because Blastoise Calyrex gives you the option of going for Cannonade immediately, or you can also just Helping Hand Astral Barrage and blow holes. And Max Incineroar is actually very strong in that matchup, especially since you can get Max Knuckle boosts.
That's cool. Maxing Incineroar is something that I definitely considered a little bit, but yeah, with the Max Knuckle, you really make it a much stronger Max option into teams that are weak to it.
I won several games this past weekend by clicking sub Max Knuckle. Ooh, now I have +2 Behemoth Blade.
That is really cool.
Very silly. Versus Kyogre Zacian, the main centerpiece of the matchup is Blastoise. Most of my sets in Indy, I lost game 1, so I wasn't allowed to rest. My only two 2-0s were Cedric on stream and Pengy, which, you know, I get to say I 2-0'd the champion, which is very nice, but yeah, Blastoise just blew him up.
Yeah, I mean, Blastoise, obviously not the biggest damage dealer, but when you give it rain, it actually starts doing massive amounts of damage, plus the residual damage that stacks up really quickly.
And then when his Zapdos knocks me into Torrent range, it's nuking everything.
Did you feel like you needed different game plans into different Kyogre Zacian teams. Obviously, there's just like several different variants of it, several ways to build it.
Yeah. Sometimes I would lead a Lucky Calyrex and just Electroweb Astral Barrage. You set up Tailwind for your Kyogre? No, you didn't. I get to Astral Barrage before your Water Spout. And if I'm going with that, I almost always would have Rillaboom in the back, and if I'm not planning on maxing the Alecki, a lot of the time I would even bring Blastoise instead of Zacian, because it is the second restricted.
Gotcha. Out of curiosity, how many Zacian Kyogre did you face in this tournament?
2 or 3.
Okay. That's a good number.
All of everything sort of blends together. I just zone out when I'm playing Pokemon. Then just when the set's done, the real world materializes again, and it's like, where am I?
I mean, you just got to lock in when you're playing. You just got to 100% focus all of your brain power on it. That's how I kind of do it too. But I ask because I faced 5 straight Kyogre Zacian. At one point, I faced 6 over the course of the tournament in 9 rounds. So I felt like that team was everywhere. And
I wish I had your schedule.
Yeah. And so I guess the other teams that seem pretty notable are the various Ice Rider teams and the various Shadow Rider teams. And then also, just because it is a Calyrex Shadow team, how you approached Eviltal also seems very relevant. I
played 1 Eviltal in the tournament. Will Marks. It was the Alecki show. So one game, it was round 9, and my resistance was really good. I was 7-1. I was like, if I lose this, I'm probably in, but I'll still try to win. Well, my main motivation was Stefan's resistance, because he's my friend. I wanted him in cut, and then he won the tournament, which was amazing. Where I went for a parting shot into Will's Yveltal, and then my Alecki lived a Max Lightning out of Max, and he said to me, "Oh, it's Assault Vest." And then immediately my Alecki outsped his +2 speed Yveltal.
That's so funny. I mean, that's just he's got to shut up. You don't want to tell people what you're thinking like that. Okay, so that's the Eviltal matchup. What about the mirror, the Calyrex Shadow Mirror, as well as Ice Rider? Are the other two?
Well, if you want to see how I approach the Calyrex Shadow Mirror, there's a VOD of that when I played Cedric. Versus him, I just led Alecki Calyrex game 1, and he led Whimsicott Calyrex, and he went for Tailwind Astral Barrage. Both of my Pokemon lived because my Alecki's fat, and then I went for Electroweb, forced out the eject button Whimsicott, so I got to chip his Incineroar and kill his Calyrex. And then he got a double KO on me, and then Blastoise ran over him.
Okay, gotcha. So, yeah, I mean that's the thing, that you don't have great speed control other than the Alecki, but having a lot of bulk and kind of getting rid of their speed control early means that it seems like you can kind of take over the end game there.
Yeah, I hope my opponent brings Whimsicott, because then that's one Pokemon that's not doing damage. I get to have 2 real Pokemon on the field.
And then, last but not least, again, the story of the tournament was Ice Rider. How did you approach that matchup?
It was mostly about spamming Yawn and Substitute to stall out Trick Room, and then I would either max Incineroar or Blastoise late game, and most of the time I would have just Astral Barrage to clean up when Trick Room expired.
Gotcha. And you said that you faced. You said that your two losses were both to Calyrex Ice Reshiram. Would you say that there are any other? Would you say that's a bad matchup, or do you just like play it incorrectly?
I think I didn't play super well because those were both late in the day. They made us play top 16 the same day, which was horrendous.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted dinner and bed. But yeah, I do think it's a bad matchup. I could have approached the game differently, especially against Leonard. I could have led Blastoise Rillaboom and gone Helping Hand Drum Solo to kill his Mimikyu, and then no Trick Room. Then he could have gone into Incineroar. And
right.
It's just,
no.
There's so many variables, and it feels like the opponent's in control. I don't think Calyrex Ice is a bad matchup. I think Reshiram is a bad matchup.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so, moving forward, you don't have to share if you don't want to, but what changes, if any, would you make to the team?
With the Rillaboom slot, no more Fake Out and Taunt.
Interesting.
Just turn off their Trick Room. Then you get to go Burr. Like,
yeah,
that's what I'm thinking. It's actually what I thought of earlier today. Because I was like, okay, how do I not lose to this in the future? And I'm definitely going to test it. And hopefully it solves the matchup like I think. Because if it doesn't, it's back to the drawing board.
Right. Yeah. And do you want to tell me about one or two notable matchups that you had over the course of your tournament run?
Round 3, I played someone named Josh. I don't remember his last name, but he had Lunadon, where game 1, he led Venudon into a Lucky Zacian, and he maxed Venusaur. And then my Lucky outsped the Venusaur. Electro up Behemoth Blade. No more Dynamax for you. And then game 2, he was like, Venusaur didn't work. And then he led Ensign Lunala into Blastoise Calyrex. So that was fun.
That was just like a 5-minute game, it sounds like.
Yeah. And the other really notable match that sticks out in my mind is against Pengi, where even though it was a 2-0, they were both extremely close sets games that I felt like I could have lost easily if I got even a single turn wrong. Where game 1, I led Calyrex Zacian into Zapdos Incineroar and just went for Astral Barrage sub, reading that he wouldn't go for Fake Out. And that just, even with Zacian not with an attack boost, that just put me in such a commanding position because it let me consistently put pressure on the board without risking taking too much damage. And then I had Blastoise Rillaboom in the back. Blastoise cannonaded through everything except for Kyogre, and then I just went for Grassy Glide on the Kyogre because it's AV, it couldn't protect.
All right. Now we know how to beat the new team to beat in the format, I guess.
He actually came up to me and said that he was terrified of playing me in top 8. And luckily, he avenged me in top 8.
Yeah. Well, those are all the questions I have. Did you have any final words or shout-outs that you wanted to give?
I want to shout out Ashton and Alex for helping me build the team. I want to shout out Joe for testing with me and running sets, and I want to shout out Devin and Stefan for being really cool to hang out with at the event. Devin, he bought me nachos during the lunch break, so I wouldn't starve to death because the cafeteria in the venue was card only, and I only had cash on me. So, yeah, he saved my run.
That's awesome.
And then I want to shout out Carson, Kyle, Joe, and Brady for going to Dick's Last Resort with me Sunday after the tournament wrapped up, and bringing my dad because seeing him at Dick's Last Resort was very funny.
I don't know what that is.
It's a restaurant that was right outside the venue, and it's basically just it's a really trashy sports bar where they make fun of you.
Okay.
That's the whole gimmick. The waiters make fun of you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the channel. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for giving me a platform to share the ramblings in my head.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I think everyone learned a lot about how to use this team. This is obviously a really powerful core that, I think it won the tournament before UIC, the Victory Road tournaments. And so, and it did, the Calyrex Hadazashin did really well. At the UIC, it's done really well. At Indianapolis, it's definitely a team to look out for. And this is a great team to try out if you are interested in trying out that sort of team. I really encourage you to try it out. Of course, the rental code is on screen right now, and the paste will be in the description down below. So again, thank you so much. Congratulations on your really, really impressive performance, your breakout performance in Masters Division. Until next time, I will see you all later.